Okay. Sorry, Simon, over to you.
Okay, well, welcome and hello, I'm Simon from Hockerton Housing Project, as Debbie said, and I'm going to just sort of very briefly do a quick introduction, define what we mean by community energy, and then have a little bit of background on Hook Norton, and then I'll talk about with Debbie the Sustainable Hockerton project that we've been involved with here, which is kind of a few years ahead, I think, of where Hook Norton is in terms of a large community energy system. So just sharing our experience, and then at the end there'll be an opportunity for questions. So as we're going along, if you think of a question, do pop it in the chat box, and we won't forget it, and we'll come back to that. So I'll start. I think the key thing is, when we're thinking about community energy, to understand what we mean by that. And I understand it as a renewable energy device that's owned by the local community and probably run by the local community as well. And the benefits from that flow back into the local community. So either the energy and the money that might be generated from it. So that's just very briefly how I understand community energy. And now I'm going to kind of hand over to Tim and Jess to give you just a little bit of background on where Hook Norton are coming from to address this.
Yeah. Thanks, Simon. I mean, it's going to be very short because you might probably know a lot of kind of the activities that we do, but we just thought it was useful to give some context in terms of, I guess, as Hook Norton Low Carbon, we started on this journey, and we tend to think of it as a journey back in 2008. And right from the start, it's been around people taking action. So we started with doing personal carbon footprints up at the school and what we could do individually within our homes, and kind of did things almost sort of individually, but just talking to each other about it. And then we started to bring some of those together and thought of ways in which we could actually do some of those things individually but collectively. So things like home loans, so that we could improve the kind of the installation, the energy performance, put in renewables in homes. So low interest loans was one of the early things. We looked at clearly working, helping on the transport side. We're a rural community, so we wanted to have pool cars to help that element. You don't have to, not everyone having to have their own cars. The really exciting thing that's moved on to more recently, which Jess might touch on again, is actually now that whole fleet has moved to electric, and we think that's great, and the usage is going up all the time. We're thinking about getting new cars, and that's going to, again, about individuals reducing their own carbon footprint. But we've also thought about kind of how we work collectively as a community. So we started working with the school right at the start. They've been really helpful throughout. And so, for example, we had solar panels on the school, help them with their installation when they upgraded. When they expanded, solar panels were put on the school. Similarly with the church, the Baptist church, having PV panels right at the start. And that's the bit which I guess we've tried to then increase in size over time, with things like having larger, we've now got 50 kilowatt peak systems on the Sports Social Club, which you've probably seen walking around the village, around Banbury Plant Hire, which you might not have seen, but that's Nigel Massey's Banbury Plant Hire, where they actually use lots of the energy on site for their recycling facility, and to gradually grow that over time. And I guess that's where we see this next stage is kind of almost moving up a scale of thinking about larger scale, either solar field PV or a wind turbine, or maybe a combination of the two, so that we can get to the sort of ambition that Hockerton will talk about, where actually the amount of energy that's generated is actually matching the amount of energy that's used. So that's kind of the context I would give. I mean, Jess will talk about some of the really new exciting stuff that we're doing as well, but that's kind of how it fits into what we think of as a journey. And we're very much about not telling people how to do things, but just giving different options so people can pick the things that work for them in their lives and how they can work together as a community. With that, I'll hand over to you, Jess.
Mm-hmm. I think you summarised it very well, Tim. Yeah, some of the detailed stuff that when I've been introduced to Hook Norton Low Carbon, I was so impressed with that I felt I had to get involved somehow. So Tim mentioned the cars, the very, very popular, now a fleet of 4 electric cars. There's 6 e-bikes to hire in the village. there's the 3 or 4 solar panel installations, and then on top of that, the individuals who have taken out loans and improved their own homes. And the newest and shiniest is the Hookie Hub, which is kind of behind me here, that we've just opened last week, and we've been working on that for months. So a space where people can travel less and learn and be in a sustainable environment. So there's a lot of plastic free goods there. And Victoria mentioned you, because I remember you came to the AGM, that we're hoping to run repair workshops from here, craft cafes, and some kind of upcycling workshops as well. So we're ever evolving, and I feel that this community energy project, with everyone's input in the community, is the next natural stage, not only because it provides renewable energy for the village, but a lot of community groups that can benefit from the income from it. So this is very early stages. This is about learning how Hockerton have produced and benefit from a similar community energy project. And we hope to get buy-in, I think that is the right word, from the community to produce something ourselves. So I personally am very excited about that.
Yeah. Wow, what a lot of inspirational stuff you guys are doing. It's amazing. So impressed. I feel, wow, yeah, great. And we're going to have an opportunity, to share our experience now with what we've done, which is a bit more focused, I suppose. We're a much smaller village. But we did a similar sort of time to you, set up Sustainable Hockerton back in 2009 officially. And we did that with kind of slightly backwards, certainly compared to what you've done, which is the right way around. We had the aim of putting up a renewable energy generator to create some funds to then it kind of do all the other things with. So we had the money flowing in first. So hence we've kind of got that there. And yeah, so that's where we've got to. I think Debbie and I are going to do a tag team now. Seems to be the thing to do as we go through this. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of background. It makes renewable energy that we started with a wind turbine, and we've gone on to photovoltaic panels, and we make renewable energy, and that generates income that we kind of spend in the village, the surplus. Yeah.
But how was the opportunity created in Hockerton? Perhaps give a little context to where we live.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a small rural village in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, and we basically had a few people that were really keen to do something. Sounds a bit like your project, and we started having village meetings. And well, in the end, I think we had about 23 before we put up the first renewable, which was a wind turbine. And within those, we had lots of discussions and thinking about the way we wanted to go forward. So it was really a development from those community meetings, really, and coming together and deciding what it is we did want to do. Yeah.
But also, we perhaps need to say that we live in a sustainable community. So in Hockerton is Hockerton Housing Project, and the Hockerton Housing Project is a sustainable community. And we'd had turbines since, Simon, 1996.
Yes, that's right.
So much smaller turbines, but had a lot of opposition initially to our first wind turbine. Huge amount of opposition from the village. So it was quite a turnaround, isn't it, really, that the village were so keen to be engaged. And they had no opposition to our second turbine at all, did they?
That's right. It's kind of a good news story because it developed. So there was, I think back in 1996, 97, there was a lot of worry about wind turbines, and it took us a long time, 5 years, to get the planning permission. So, and a lot of effort and time. The second one was kind of nobody objected, and then we've got 79 people in the area owning the village wind turbine now. So it's gone from kind of against to neutral to very much in favour, which is really good news. Really, it's based on the fact that when people kind of take ownership, it's a way forward, I think. Yeah.
Are you going to show the video of Peter?
I can do, yes. I've got, so I'll share my screen if I may, and that's got, I've got here a little recording of one of our neighbours who lives quite close to the turbine. So just so it's just not me talking.
Simon, you need to share your sound,
Yes,
I
I
think.
just realised that. One of those things. I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry, it's one of those things. I don't know why they don't check those boxes when so often I forget to do that. Sorry. So here we go again. I might have to take it back to the beginning.
The idea that a local community would actually take the lead role here was a key one. We actually think it's a crucially important thing that we do something about the ridiculous consumption of energy in this country, of non-sustainable energy that is. We felt that this was an excellent combination. Community, environment, things went really well together.
Can other people do this? I think yes, with provisos in that you do need a windy place to put a turbine and have a friendly landlord that will allow you to put it there. Obviously, wind is still a fairly good bet because it's good value for money.
So there we go. There's just a little snippets there from obviously myself at the end and Peter Cook, who lives really close to where the turbine is.
So, Simon, what were the challenges of putting it up?
Well, getting a team together to start with. So it's, you know, it's one of those things that you really don't want to do on your own. So having a team of people, and then there's some really practical things that you have to deal with, like where are you actually going to plug it in? So the grid connection and how you're going to get that, because that can be really expensive. So actually determining the practicalities of how the energy is actually going to go is kind of really important. Obviously, finding the site that everybody's happy with, and I suppose then thinking about raising the finance, and that's when, as you guys have certainly got, is when you've got lots of sort of links with the community, you have certainly more chance of raising more money locally. And but that was a kind of a touch and go thing, is when you're raising the money, are you going to raise enough? So that was certainly one of the challenges we had to overcome. Yeah.
So, but what are the benefits? What are the benefits?
Yeah. So once we've got it up, we've found there are lots. It actually brings people together, which is interestingly, and people are very aware now that Hockerton is sort of focusing on sustainability, which is great. I mean, it puts a lot of money into the village. So I think the village pot is £53,000, I think, something like that. So, you know, we've been doling out money for sustainability projects, and we have one of the schemes is just a small grant to every household where you can buy low energy light bulbs or insulation or insulated curtains, lots of different things, electric bikes, all that sort of thing. And so that the village actually gets real tangible benefits. And then, of course, because it's a renewable energy generator, you're obviously offsetting carbon being produced elsewhere. So you get the wider benefit to the wider community by reducing just the carbon impact. So that's, yeah, there are multiple benefits. It's really interesting doing community energy.
So what other things have you developed from this project, such as the solar project?
Yeah, so we've worked with local businesses and farmers because we wanted to increase the production side. We were making enough money to do that, so we've worked with a local farmer and put photovoltaic panels, PV panels, on his chicken shed roof. That's a 50 kilowatt system. And then there's a rainwater collection business that makes rainwater collection tanks, and we've used his, that's a 30 kilowatt system. And then we've got, there's a small sort of wellbeing centre which we've put photovoltaic panels, so much like you've done in Hook Norton. And those are all adding now into the pot, and obviously they've increased our renewable energy energy generation. And we're looking at sort of other projects in the village where, you know, we've bought nice road signs and we've bought electric car charging points and things like that. So there's other sort of nice little projects that we've got involved with.
So why did you choose a wind turbine first?
Yeah, so I mean, it was really good value, basically, and we had a windy site, and that's obviously key for a wind turbine, but it seems ridiculous to say it, but it is really important. And the site meant we could put up a wind turbine and be fairly sure we'd get quite a lot of energy produced, and that has a nice lot of value. And they are so we knew, and we decided to put up a second-hand one. So that was a process that the village meetings looked at. So there was this kind of decision whether you went for a new one, which obviously is less risky and it's like buying a new car, it comes with a guarantee, or you go for a second-hand one, which might need more maintenance long-term, but they're much cheaper, so your ability to earn money. And people, quite interestingly, I thought, in the village were much keener on the idea of buying a second-hand one than a new one. So that's what we did. So that's another reason why it's very good value for money. We have had repairs over the time, but fortunately it's made more money than it's cost to run. So that's, yeah.
Actually, the repair was last year. It was a big repair last year, wasn't there? And actually, you recouped the money really quickly. I was really surprised.
Yeah, that's right.
So how do you decide to work? Well, I can ask you both of these. How do you decide to where to put the turbine in? How do you decide whether the solar is going to work?
So, well, okay, focusing on the turbine. So we decided, we had lots of criteria basically, but one of the key ones was we excluded areas around houses. So we drew a map of the parish. We wanted it in the parish, but away from the houses. So we drew the circles around all the houses and had a 500-metre radius. And that was kind of arbitrary. It was a big distance, more than typical. So it's kind of erring on the cautious side. And that left kind of spaces where, and then, you know, was it a high windy bit? Was it open aspect to the southwest? Most of our wind comes from the southwest. So when you're standing on the site, if you can see the horizons, i.e. there's nothing in the way, it's probably a good site. So that the combination of the sort of the wind resource, how it fits in with the local community, and then talking to various landowners and going, would you be interested? And finding somebody that has got the land that would be happy for the community to work with them. So those are the sort of the key points we had to look at in terms of the location for the wind turbine. And then, so the next part of that was about
solar. If you were going to put solar field in, or you're going to put, what are the considerations there?
Yeah, so again, we've gone for fairly small systems, and it's now, certainly with the feed-in tariff gone, it's quite important to be able to use the energy generated on site. So if there's a factory or a way to use the energy, it has much higher value, certainly for photovoltaic panels. So and then the practicalities, like on a south-facing or south-ish facing roof in our case, and you know, things like whether the roof will be strong enough and so on. So we've had lots of discussions with local businesses again that might be interested in doing that.
Okay. So how did people find the noise when the turbine first went up?
Well, that's been really interesting. I think that was certainly one of the worries that people had, but it has proved to be not a problem. I've got another video actually, which I'll share with you, which I've sort of filmed it. There's a road about 500 meters away, and then I filmed it about halfway, well, not quite halfway to the turbine, and then really near the turbine. And you'll be able to hear the difference in those three locations. And the road is all filmed in the same half an hour. So the road noise is kind of still going on as we look at it. So if I again, hopefully, oh, those are still ticked. That's marvelous, isn't it? So I'm going to share my screen again and go back to this, and hopefully you can see this.
Hello, I'm Simon Tilley from Hopkinton. I'm going to introduce you to the Sustainable Hopkinton wind turbine. We're currently standing right by the A617 and the turbine is about 550 metres away. You might just be able to see it through the trees. We're now going to walk up to the turbine and get a bit closer so you can see and hear it from closer to. We're standing about 400 metres away now and you can see the wind turbine quite clearly. The noise of the road is still in the background and we can hear the tree noise around us here. I can't actually hear the wind turbine at the moment, but obviously I can see it. So here we are about 80 metres away, and I'll let you listen to the turbine. Sustainable Hockerton's wind turbine has been running for a couple of years, and we've been saving about 150, 160 tonnes of carbon dioxide each year. The output from the turbine more than covers the electricity consumed in the whole of the village for its electricity consumption, and we are generating money for the village, and it produces about £60,000 worth. So thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Yeah, so there we are. That's a quick. That's Helena, my wife, by the way. She's just come in from work, trying to muscle in. So I hope that was, I thought, a fairly good demonstration of, you know, what a wind turbine might sound like, and you know, you could see that even standing right underneath it, I wasn't really having to raise my voice to be heard, and yet it was still kind of blowy and going round. So yeah, I mean, they do make a noise, and they make more noise as it gets windier, but you tend to find the noise around you gets louder as well, so it's masked. And one of the Peter Cook again, I've got a little snippet from him on noise as well, which I'll share.
To be within 200 or 300 metres to hear a faint, distant noise from this turbine. I'm quite convinced that no householder, no occupier of any of the houses near this can hear the turbine. Quite sure of it.
Ah, there we go. I'm not sure that Pete chose the background music for that. That was a professionally made video. So yeah, there we go.
So what were the other fears and objections and that people had, and how did you address them?
So because they were relatively new things at the time, you know, people hadn't had experience of them. So it was coming and having a look at our turbines. It was having meetings and just talking about it really, and giving opportunities to see them, which kind of was they were relatively unusual back then. And you know, showing people what it might look like. So we created photo montages, which sort of are, you know, working out where the wind turbine is going to go in a photograph of the place where you think it might go. And that we had great fun doing that, because you don't just kind of cut and paste and guess. You have to work out what it should look like, and typically you do that by creating some sort of scale, and often that's done by flying a hot air balloon with a known distance and then photographing it, and that gives you a scale. But of course, every time we went to the site to do that, the wind was so strong blew over balloons. So we actually ended up doing it with a kite with a third string hanging down, so a 2-string kite and a third string with a known distance, and then you can kind of, so you can see the kite on the photographs, and you can cut and paste the turbine to the right height. So you can create visual images, and that was a really good way to show people what it might look like when it would go up. Yeah.
So how much did it cost?
Yes. Now that was really difficult to know when we were doing it, and was really important because we had to raise the money first and then you go and buy it. So because we were buying a second-hand one, we actually spent nearly £70,000 on the actual turbine itself, and then there was everything else. So we had to get it, we had to get it serviced, we had to pay for a track to the turbine site, pay for the grid connection. That was £70,000. So all those extra costs. The total cost in the end came to £235,000, and it's a £235,000, and it's a 225 kilowatt machine. So and it was secondhand. Now some of those things you'd have to put in whether it was new or secondhand. So that's kind of why the price went up from the basic cost of the turbine. And we raised all that money from people joining Sustainable Hockerton and buying shares in it to raise the money for it.
So if you wanted to buy something similar today, how would the price compare?
Well, this is really interesting. The price of turbines has actually come down. I think both new ones and second-hand ones are cheaper. So you're in a really quite good position. On the other side of the coin, there isn't the feed-in tariff, which we have, which increases our income. But because the cost has come down, I think there's still a really good opportunity there for making it viable.
Is that the same with solar panels, Simon?
Yeah, it is, interestingly. So if you choose to go with a solar panel, a large solar panel system, the price has fallen away dramatically. So there really is an opportunity at the moment to still make money and buy panels new or whatever, because the price
we have 90 panels on our roof of our houses, and they're very old technology, and they were a huge amount of money, weren't they?
Yeah, so 18 years ago when we bought those were £43,000, and a similar set 10 years ago was 11, and a similar set now would be about 6. And they're more efficient panels and producing more energy. So we've got 3 sets on site. So, the price has really come down amazingly.
So can you just talk us through what was required for planning?
A lot of time and effort. So there's a whole list of things. I won't go through them all now, but you need to look at physically what it is, a drawing of where you're going to put it, and you need to look at what the predicted noise levels are going to be and how that will affect people at distance. You need to do these photo montages, so you're showing people what it might look like. You might also, there's things like avoiding, you have to do this in the planning stage, avoiding the electromagnetic signals. So all our telephones have, amazingly work everywhere, and you see the telephone masts, and they're sending the telephone signals between each other, and that's the line between those two masts. You don't really want to put a wind turbine in between them because it would disrupt the telephone signal. I mean, you can get around it, but it's much cheaper to avoid putting your wind turbine there. So you have to work out where all those signals are and then demonstrate that you're putting your turbine in a hole between the grid of signals. So there's lots of things like that you have to think of. Yeah.
So I think you've talked about this, really, what the big costs were, the turbine, the grid connection, and the planning permission, really. And how long did the planning permission take?
Well, for us it was relatively quick. So it was longer, sort of getting people together, raising the money, but the turbine, the planning permission was about 6 months. So in terms of a planning application for a turbine, that's actually relatively short, and it is mostly because people in the village were basically asking to have a turbine in the village.
Yeah.
and so the councillors could see that it had a lot of support. That's not to say everybody supported it, but it was obvious that there was a lot of support for it.
Yeah. And so how big is the
So our one is now, in terms of modern turbines, is, I suppose, relatively small. It's 30 meters high. It's got a blade diameter of 29 meters. And it is a 225 kilowatts. So in terms of the peak output of the electrical power, it's 225 kilowatts, and it generates about 300,000 kilowatt hours a year from that. And you know, so it's big enough to have, you can go in the base and there's a ladder up the middle, and you can climb up the ladder, and you know, it's a fairly big volume inside at the bottom. But it's and the reason they've got bigger is for a little bit more diameter, you capture a lot more energy. And so it's become kind of cost effective, basically, to have them a bit bigger. And to give you an idea of that, what that means, we look, there's another farmer who's got a slightly bigger one than us. It's a Enicon 330. So it's 33 meters in diameter. So ours is 29, and that's 33. So it's only 4 meters bigger in the diameter. So that's 2 meters longer blade. And yet it produces 50% more energy than ours. So for that really relatively small increase in blade length, you're getting an enormous increase in energy output.
And does that go, you know, if you went, say, 733 to another, such, I don't want the next slide up here.
Yeah, it does.
Would it double again?
So and what is interesting, of course, the cost of putting in a track doesn't double. You've still got to put one track in, and you've still got to put one grid connection in. So the fixed costs stay the same, but your output can increase dramatically if you have a bigger diameter.
So you based the one in our village on our consumption, the village's consumption.
Yeah, so we were quite lucky in that, well, we have a relatively small village, so we have 50 to 60 houses. So we sized the turbine at about what the electrical consumption in the village was and what a turbine might produce. Obviously, it's not exact science, obviously different wind each year, but it's roughly meets, the output from the turbine roughly meets the consumption of the village electrically. Yeah.
So it's something to think about, isn't it? That.
Yeah, trying to match. So you don't, obviously you don't have to do that, but it feels right trying to get along those lines.
To match it with wind and solar, if we can.
Yeah, that's right.
So how long will it last? I know ours is second hand. So
yeah, so they say on the tin it should last about 25 years, but as I've ours is second hand, and we're looking after it and we're maintaining it, and when something goes wrong, we don't just decide to go and buy a new one. We bought the replacement parts. So it's a bit like how old is a broom. You replace the handle after a few years, and then the brush head wears out, and you replace the brush head, and then you replace the broom handle again, and you just keep on replacing bits, and you can keep them going.
I mean, the actual turbine shaft is very unlikely to go wrong, isn't it?
That's right. Yes, it's a big steel tower, which and the foundations, they're going to last. So the things that wear out are things like the bearings, maybe. So we've had those serviced, and maybe the gears wear, so you might need to replace the gears. And potentially after, I think at 25 years, you might have to replace the blades, because they're obviously, it depends on the wind conditions. If it's very windy on your site, you'll have to replace them sooner than if it's not quite so windy. But yeah, we're at sort of 20 years into the turbine life, and it's definitely got lots of life left in it. So we're quite okay with thinking more than 25 years.
And what about in relation to solar?
Yeah, they seem to be extremely good. Again, they sort of guarantee them at different percentages over time, 20, 25 years. And the ones on our roof here, we've had for 18 years, and we haven't seen any drop in output. So they're showing really good resilience. And, they've been designed to go on satellites. That's where they've come from, really. And they just seem to last forever. They're great things. Obviously, the price has come down, and so I can't really say how long they're going to last. We're basing ours on sort of 18 years ago technology, but I think it should. They're still guaranteeing them output wise. There's no moving parts, so there's not much to go wrong, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, and you have to maintain them, don't you? It's,
Yeah.
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 So how does it work with the metering and the billing?
So yeah, you've got to sell your energy, and it's fairly straightforward, really. So as well as obviously you'll be used to having a meter that measures your consumption. So you just have a meter that measures your production the way out, and that is a smart meter, if you like, in that it's automatically gives information to whoever you're selling it to. So we sell ours to Good Energy, and they get this data set that every half an hour they know how much we've produced, and they pay us for that energy produced based on that data that we send them from the meter. So it's all fairly straightforward. We don't have any issues with that. It happens automatically, really, and they even tell us what we have to invoice them for. So that's quite nice. So that's, yeah, fairly straightforward.
And I guess it provides employment, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's another benefit. Yeah, I could have mentioned that before, but so we have Hockerton Housing Project where we are, we manage it, so making sure the alarm system works and the maintenance people come when they're meant to, and so that's local employment. And the maintenance people are employed. They come once every 6 months to do the service on it, a bit like a car. Yeah, so it does create, it's not a huge amount of employment, but it does create local employment. Yeah.
And what about other impacts?
I suppose I'd have to say they're mostly quite low. You
No
know,
dead animals?
No, yeah, no, we haven't seen any dead animals. The farmer's still farming, and it's been, yeah, it's somewhere for people to walk to. So people in the village walk up to it and sort of just, you know, lean on it and check it's still going round, sort of thing. And, come back again.
It's quite a good, if you're walking further, it's quite a good sort of signpost to know where you are.
Yes. Yeah, you certainly know when it's not working. So occasionally it has stopped working, and you know, the impact is really basically somebody on the phone to me going,
it's not working.
Please fix it.
So I suppose the other impact really is how much people appreciate the benefits.
Yeah, I've got another snippet from Pete Cook again on that. So I'll just share with you that this is Pete Cook again, living in the village. So that's the previous one, and the last one is.
Really pleased to have it. I'm really pleased to see it. I think it's a thing of quite attractive proportion. It's a nice thing to have around.
That's very short, but it's nice to have somebody else talking other than me.
We did have other people from the village who were more than willing to
yeah.
to say how much they appreciate it being here, and looking for other opportunities so that we can do more.
Yeah.
There's a question. No, I think we're pretty much wrapped up with our presentation. There's just a couple of questions here, Simon. Jess, do you want to ask yours? Are you unmuted? No. So Jess has said, what would be your one piece of advice for our community embarking on this journey?
Lots of communication. Get people's views and start finding out, you know, the nuances of what people, you know, do you want a second-hand thing? Do you want a new thing? Do you want wind turbine? Do you want PV? Do you want both? You know, that communication process is really important. And as I said, we got through 23 meetings by the end of it. So it's so important to get that bit right, because then the subsequent bits feel better, especially, you know, getting a second-hand one, really risky for, you know, I was thinking, okay, but if you've been in a room where everybody else has gone, yeah, no, we want a second-hand one, it's kind of the responsibility is shared. So that kind of thing is quite important.
So there's another question from Helen and Hazel. Please, can I ask, where is the potential position for this turbine? I presume they mean Hook Norton's. So I don't think there's necessarily a decision. This consultation isn't necessarily about positions or whether it's turbines or whether it's solar. It's whether people want community energy. Am I right in that, Tim? Hang on, I need to unmute him. We could just leave him muted. Hang on. Sorry, I can't do it from there. Why can't I do it from here? Tim. And just because I'm not the host, hang on a minute, Tim. I just made myself.
Sorry.
Now you should be able to.
Grand, yeah, that's perfect. Grand, yeah. No, I had tried to unmute myself earlier. Yeah, I mean, in fact, I mean that is something that when the survey forms come out, I think there'll be some a little bit more clarity around that. In that, for the solar, we've got one landowner that's got a great south-facing site on Council Hill and is interested in that. So that looks like a good site for the solar, and we've not done lots of research around that. But that's the news one site, and that's one of the questions you'll see on the survey. On the wind, we actually, there is stuff on the website. We did a Met mast back in 2012, and then looked at a number of sites. So there's actually a whole range of sites around that it could be around the hills around Hookie. We're actually, for Oxfordshire, Charlie Luxton often talks about this, kind of when you see a sort of wind resource map, there's a kind of this, for a whole of, not just Oxfordshire, I think Buckinghamshire, Berkshire, there's this kind of purple area of high wind resource. And Charlie said to me, oh, where's that? And saw it at Norton. So there's actually quite a lot of resource around. So there's no, you know, when we did the work before, there's a range of sites, and we did the stuff that Simon was talking about in terms of police communications as well as the wider one and things like that. So there was one of those sites that was ruled out, but that's open. But the idea, exactly as Debbie said, the first stage is to say, are people supportive of community energy? Whether, and if they are, you know, is there a preference for wind, for solar, or a combination, and then go from there. So that's the answer, Helen and Hazel. There's not a specific site.
Yeah, it's quite specific on the survey when you see the survey when it goes live. So Victoria's asked, "Is this almost seems to be too good to be true? What do you think is the main reason why more communities haven't done something similar? I.e., have your neighbouring villages tried to follow suit, and if not, why not? And when they can see the success story on their doorstep."
Yeah, good question. So what's interesting now, I think I can see 15 turbines around ours, sort of dotted around on the horizon. So lots of people have, and certainly at the moment, I'm helping a couple of other communities as well. So I think it's a bit of a trend actually at the moment, but certainly there's been a gap since for quite a while, and it's really been because of the planning guidance and the whole issue around government support, and it's been you know, really difficult. So for quite a while the planning system has been against it, and also the way you can sell electricity has been against it, but that they've changed the way you can sell into the grid now, and so it's sort of opening it up a bit, and I think communities are starting to think about it again and take advantage of it.
We've certainly seen in the last 12 months a lot of communities coming, well, quite a few communities coming to us for advice, haven't we, on community energy. And what's also interesting, very interesting, is the number of university students, research students, who are doing quite significant research documents that they're wanting us to participate in. Wouldn't you say, Simon?
Yeah.
We get a lot of research students wanting to ask us various things about different aspects of the community we live in, but that has been significant in the number of requests coming through.
And I think people are cottoning on actually to the fact that there is an opportunity there which can either go, the benefits can either go into the local community or somebody else. And the communities are going, hang on, well, let's make it us.
And Jess actually just posted a really useful link that people might have seen in there, which is West Mill, which is I mean, people will see there's lots of solar fields around us. There's one out towards Sidford, there's one out towards Milcombe. There's quite a few of those very locally, so people can wander up and see those. In terms of the combination of wind and solar, West Mill is certainly a really good one. And one of the things that will come around on social media, the great thing, they actually have got a virtual tour on the 7th of July. So if you look out for that, or if you Google West Mill, or that link that Jess just sent, they've got a virtual event on the, I think it's 7 o'clock on the 7th of July. And so you can just log on to that. I think when I looked, there were 22 places still there. They do on-site visits often, but if anyone wants to have a look more about that and get a sort of hands-on feel, then that's a free event to register.
Thank you, Tim. There are no more questions unless anybody has one. Oh, Daniel, shall I unmute you? There we go.
Thanks, Debbie. One of the questions I have is that Simon's talked effusively about the repayment and the financial benefits of the wind turbine. Simon, what subsidy rate in pence per kilowatt hour do you guys receive over in Hockerton for your wind turbine, please?
Yeah, so we're getting the feed-in tariff, which is obviously now not there.
But it persists for you guys, doesn't it?
Yes, it does persist. So it's only new entrants that don't get it. So yeah, I think it was 24 pence a unit. So it's good. It's a good rate. It compared to what you can sell it for, which is just over five pence a unit.
Right.
So that's what. So obviously, if you don't have the feed-in tariff, and you're only getting 5 pence, you have to have a good wind resource, and ideally, or a good sun resource, and ideally some sort of on-site consumption. Because what happens there is, if somebody's paying, 14, I don't know how much you're paying for electricity, but more than that, probably 15 pence a unit or more. If you can sell it to them for 10 pence, they're getting a good deal, but you've doubled your income. So that, rather than selling to the grid. And another impact, and I don't know whether it's going to go through, but I think tomorrow we've got the local electricity bill, which would facilitate selling of energy much more easily on the grid. Whether that's going to go through or not, I don't know, but certainly trying to support it. Yeah, so at the moment, you're limited to sort of the market price, which would be about 5 pence a unit.
Fine. And just very quickly, Tim, if I may, Hook Norton is very much on the edge of Western Power Distribution's area. I think, to illustrate for those who aren't aware, Swerford is outside of Western Power, so we are truly on the margin. I mean, a 1/4 megawatt wind turbine, is that something that Western Power can handle on its grid down here, do you think? Or is that subject to exploration with them?
That is that subject. In fact, I mean, Simon knows that we've been going back and forth. What we ideally wanted was a kind of the idea of what the constraints would be. So for example, for the solar on Council Hill, the feed-in line that comes in, as you say, Hook Norton being on the end of that, literally runs across the bottom of that field. So in one sense, you could say could have a very short line in there and sort of plug it in, but that capacity is an issue. I think they just weren't able, or weren't. We'll say able rather than willing, but a combination of willing and able to give us that information without going through more of a process. And I think there's a 2-stage process. First of all, getting an informal one, which there's still a lot of information to feed in. So Simon and I will work on that to put in. And then if it does get support from the community and we've got a specific project, that's when they'll actually come and tell you this is what's possible. But actually, yeah, you would kind of think that it's one of those things that as a national grid, you'd have this information so you'd know what it is at different stages. But it is, it's one that you have to do at that stage. But Western Power is one that has been upgrading this area because it's on the end of the line. And I don't know if you saw, we were involved in a project called Smart Hooky.
Yes, I've read the papers that have come out from that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it sounds. I mean, it's great to kind of bounce some of these things off. It sounds like you've sort of researched and known a fair bit about it, and it would be great to sort of keep you in the loop on that and asking the questions. We can find out the answers, but really relevant questions you're asking. And I guess part of this is about saying, first of all, how is the community supportive and what is it supportive of, and then go to the next stage, because we know we're going to have to spend funds as well as time to make that happen, and there's no point in doing that if people are going to say, well, not interested. So that's why it's the first stage, but really important questions, Daniel.
Okay, thanks.
Is that right, Simon? Your Sustainable Hockerton web address? Because there's more information on there, isn't there? The second one.
Hockerton.org.uk, yeah.
Correct.
That's Sustainable Hockerton.
Okay. Are there any more questions? Okay, so we're going to wrap things up, but just to remind you that on the 9th and the 10th of July, you can go and see Jess's lovely co-working space, but Simon and I were going to be down in Hook Norton for that event as well. So it'd be lovely to meet people and talk talk this opportunity through with you. And then on the 15th and the 21st of July, there's 2 further information events, which will be more like a question and answer thing than a presentation. So you can ask more in-depth questions. Just also to say, this is your opportunity to have your views heard on the possibility or the opportunity for Hook Norton and the surrounding villages to have their own community energy source. The survey goes live tomorrow on Thursday, the 1st of July, and it ends on the 31st of July. There will be a link to the online survey on the Hook Norton Low Carbon website under the community energy section. If you're familiar with the website, you'll notice that community energy has popped up on there. And thanks you, Jess. And also you will be getting a paper copy through your door. So it would be really good to encourage your neighbours and other people to be involved and to find out more. Any questions at all? You can contact us through our website as well, which is I'll put it on there, hockertonhousingproject.org.uk.
Just so people don't think that the surveys they're being printed and will be ready from Friday, and they'll be distributed from the weekend onwards. We're obviously doing that through a voluntary group. It's going to go around not just at Norton but also the surrounding villages. So if you're not the first household to receive it, it will come through your letterbox, but it might take, give us 10 days or so to make sure it comes through to you. But since the survey is open until the end of July, that should hopefully work. But the online, I'd say, is there, and that will be, to be honest, if you're able to do the online, that will be brilliant because it makes all the data collection and stuff good. So actually, again, if you're talking to people about it, do encourage them, even with a paper one. If they have the option of doing it online, then it just makes it great. But we want to make sure that everyone can
have their views. Yeah, good. And also on the community energy site, there will be a frequently asked questions PDF from that we put together in combination, and so it's worth having a look at that as well. And I think there's also other examples that are around the Oxfordshire area about different community energy and projects on that as well. So encourage you to go to the website and look at those as well. Okay, so thank you very much everybody for your time, and I hope to meet you on the 9th and the 10th of July.
And I will just run through the questions and answers. I've got a PowerPoint display. You don't necessarily have to stay for this. This is a bit of a repeat, really, but it's just for people that might have access difficulties. If it's written down on the webinar, on the recording, it'll be there for people. So I'll just run through those very quickly, and people will be able to pause on them to read the question and the answers later on. So otherwise, I think we're done, aren't we?
Yeah, and just to say, the recording will go onto the Hook Norton site as well. So the one from yesterday and this one will both be on the Hook Norton Low Carbon Community Energy website. Thank you.
Okay, marvellous. So Debbie, just make me host and I'll run through that set of questions and answers for the screen almost.
There you go.
Marvellous. Okie dokie. So there we go, and I'll share this. So these are the the beginning.
Look how they spelled my name like this. So like, oh dear.
Yeah,
My surname is Linnell, so it's
yeah, that's dyslexia showing through.
yeah.
So those are the questions and answers that we've just, so summaries of the answers and the questions we had there. So there's a record of them for future use. And they're the links to the various websites and the next events. and the link to the survey. Fantastic. There we go. Okie dokie. I think we're done, aren't we?
Great. Really good to have all the questions, particularly. So that's good. And yeah, thanks for the sessions.
Okie dokie.
Good night to everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
See you, folks.